crest a low hill in the forest, finding it lit by scattered hellfire. In the center, a demon of the old world unfurls its wings, welcoming you to your last breath.
Dead.
Hello, and welcome to the April 2026 Zero Means You're Dead. I am SM Hillman, professionally. Most people just call me Sean or Get Out of Here You. And I just want to say, this will date this episode a bit, but that's okay. I want to say good luck to the Artemis crew who have deployed their solar arrays by now and are orbiting the Earth. So we wish them the best. It's an international crew. Yes, Canadians are not Americans, so it is an international crew. And I hope to see them back alive in 10 days. Okay. Time for the Villain Monologue. And April Fools. Happy April Fools. April Fools for those who celebrate. I want to talk a little bit today about the monetization of the GM and player conflict. If there was a thread in tabletop role-playing game conversations that I would eradicate, and this one goes back as far as I've been rolling dice and beyond, it would be the idea that the GM and players are enemies, opponents in the so-called collaborative hobby. This has led to odd conversations. One of my least favorites is whether a GM is also a player in the game. Of course they are a player in the game, just one with more power over content the other players. And that depends on the game, to be honest. A GM is neither a dictator or servant to the players, but a partner in the game. This idea of competition provides currency for this toxic to play. GM versus the players provides fodder for memes, endless memes. It affects attitudes at the game table and can leak into influential social media. I have lately taken notice that some products are monetizing this pseudo conflict. I realize this has been true for some time. Only now have I put two and two together and come up with the dollar signs. This cannot help but to further divide into a hobby community that thrives on division already. To be clear, I saw a Facebook ad a couple of weeks ago as I was deciding what I was going to talk about in my Villain Monologue, and it literally was going to charge you, the GM, in ways to not have your players screw up your campaign. And I thought that was a really, really disturbing an attitude. Is it just a monetization? I have no problem with indie people making their monies, but when it's built on the idea that there's an adversarial relationship within the role-playing game, specifically, really the D&D role-playing game, where it's not true. That's not true at all. It's bothersome, and it bothered me enough. I want to say something about it. Different generations and different want different things from their games. Of course they do. I started playing in 1981, about 7 years after the invention of RPGs, and I did not want the same kind of game the originals wanted. I wanted something with better action, less lethal. Yes, believe it or not, I wanted a less lethal game. More of that in a different monologue, and faster advancement. I also wanted less misogyny. I wanted characters of color and content that expanded on the idea of an RPG and fantasy. Full disclosure, I do have issues with artistic nudity in some games. I just think it should be pangender and not always ridiculous in circumstance. I didn't have a problem with specifically with House of the Silver Princess, where the person was tied up by their own hair, otherwise unclothed. Although I realize some people do find that offensive, and I understand that. But so that's something we should have a conversation about, right? Art is something we should have a conversation about. It shouldn't just be one way or the other. So it's something that it's more nuanced than that. Because your content attracts the audience you want, your attitude towards the game matters. How we talk about games matters. If that conversation, even in jest, contributes to tired stereotypes, then it does not have any place in the hobby, in my opinion. We all need to do better. We're not adversaries, and we need to play these games with empathy, and inclusive attitudes. You may feel differently, but that's okay. So it looks like we have. Do we have some comments, or is that just Joe saying hi? We do. Vanessa is here. Hello, Vanessa. The best art makes you think. It does. Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. All right. Speaking of art, let's get into some of the games that are coming up, some of the crowdfunding that's coming up. Night Shift Devil Division on BackerKit. Night Shift Devil Division is a standalone TTRPG that uses the Draw Steel engine from MCDM to deliver fast, punchy, grid-based combat built around combos, teamwork, positioning, and big signature techniques. Triumphs build momentum across operations, so pushing deeper makes you stronger and risks more, exactly like the best shonen arcs. The longer the night runs, the more dangerous everyone becomes. Adrenaline, an agent resource, adrenaline fuel clutch saves, last-second tactics, and cinematic reversals when the squad is on the break. So yeah, Night Shift, Devil Division. It is going to be based on Draw Steel. I apologize. Next time, I promise I will have images to put up while I'm talking. Night Shift Devil Division, a game that will make you feel like a badass shonen anime character kicking the piss out of grotesque devils and monsters in 90s Tokyo. Not 80s Tokyo. 90s Tokyo. Powered by Draw Steel. Okay, up next, we have Tempora, cinematic sci-fi TTRPG. Tempora is a retro scientific tabletop RPG about time travel, paradoxes, and alternate history, written and illustrated by Victoria Kaminsky. What is the game about? Well, Tempora is a role-playing game about time travel, consequences, and choices. Tempora is also going to be on BackerKit. Players take the roles of people who travel through time by choice, by accident, or under orders. The motivations vary: fixing the future, treasure hunting in the past, escaping something in their own time, or simply sightseeing in the Jurassic. I can think of a friend in particular who would like to sightsee in the Jurassic. Time is both a frontier and a maze, and those who step into it must navigate their way through. The world of Tempora is based on science fiction, but not bound to any single genre. As you know me, I cringe at that wording. But we're not here to quibble over genre. You might find here shadowy organizations, underground networks, and lone operatives who cross the time for profit, purpose, or redemption. Sometimes for a reason, sometimes out of courage, sometimes because no one else can. Tempora, it's going to be on BackerKit. It might already be on BackerKit, so look it up. Blood Rage 5e from Tycoon Games. That is going to be on Kickstarter. Rise, Chieftain. Enter a grim Norse fantasy world in this 5e forged RPG based on the board game by Eric M. Lang. All sales benefit Toys for Tots. So not about profit. And that's all I have as far as Blood Rage goes. But it's Norse, it's 5e, all sales benefit Toys for Tots. So, and that again will be on Kickstarter. Campaign Builder, Pirates and Plunder. This is from Cobalt Press. It's going to be on Kickstarter, of course. Cold Press is, I think, exclusively on Kickstarter. With complete naval combat, gunpowder, cargo, and spellcasting rules for naval adventures, Pirates and Plunder offers a rich 5e booty. I don't know. Cargo, I mean, cargo rules. Your ship can hold 20 cubic meters worth of cargo. Make a DC 15 check to see if you can squeeze in that extra 5 cubic meters. But it's about pirates too, who cares? So Campaign Builder, Pirates and Plunder from Kobold Press, and it's going on Kickstarter. Here's a good one. One of Us Will Die. Lone Colossus Games, designed, I believe, by Titus Villanueva III. Titus, I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's also going to be on Kickstarter. One of Us Will Die is a fast, tense, and emotionally charged tabletop role-playing game where one player begins the game knowing their character will die. It could be you. And the others must uncover must uncover the truth before the final scene. Created by Filipino game designer Titus Villanueva III, and to be published internationally by Lone Colossus Games. The game blends social deduction, cinematic storytelling, and psychological drama into unforgettable 3 to 5 hour sessions. Sounds pretty interesting to me, as a different take on an RPG. Certainly, for those who prefer that social deduction and the more social aspects of RPGs are going to love that. Peacekeepers by Stone Fable is the publisher. It's also going to be a Kickstarter. A TTRPG system which sees you as plucky, potentially unlucky. I mean, that's true of most characters. Coppers in a fantasy city alive with flair, fun, and fiascos. It's a fantasy crime fighting TTRPG. So Victorian Keystone Cops. I guess the Keystone Cops were Victorian. I don't know. Victorian Keystone Cops is what it looks like to me. So that could be a lot of fun. Somebody out there tell me if the Keystone Cops were, Victorians. All right. So we've come to our first break point, where we, and this is going to become a every session thing. Yes, Victorian Keystone Cops, yes. Yes, I know what Keystone Cops were. My mama didn't raise no dummies. I just don't remember the time period. Thank you, Vanessa. All right. Let's grab the, Joe kindly did the April new releases for us. This will be every month. So here we go. New releases for April.
Take this note to the king. It should be a short quest. There is a darkness upon the sea.
These tranquil islands betray the horrors that have unfolded here. And a constant state of war has spawned a new breed of outlaw. The pirates. But fouler things than men plague these waters. Hordes of undead. Ships of bone and flesh. Nameless terrors lurking in the deep. But not the devil himself can save a man from his own greed. Pirate Borg.
During my journeys, I've encountered many dangerous creatures, many of which proved useful. From the wondrous fey beast known as the prismatic jewelbird, to the terrifying hunters of the infernal lords themselves. In this tome, I've recorded nearly 100 of these beings, and the hundreds of myriad rituals their components can be used in. Tome of Intangible Treasures 2 offers 5e compatible rules for enchanting characters with boons and charms, alongside nearly 400 new rituals and dangerous monsters. These rituals will also be made compatible with the crafting and harvesting rules from Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting, allowing you to pick and choose your favorite method of enchantment for your table. Pair it with the first book in the series for an expanded set of boons and charms, or use it on its own as you get started on your journey. Available in PDF and hardcover. Add-on box sets of tarot-sized reference cards or themed sharp-edged resin dice for some epic physical rewards. Plus, for the first time ever, we're making miniatures of monsters from the book, available in both STL and resin. Ready for you to paint. In Tome of Intangible Treasures 2.
Aethon Audio presents Industrial Mage, Book 1, by Nectar, performed by Eric Jason Martin. Chapter 1. Death is a Social Construct. Ethan's fists pounded the punching bag, sending a rapid series of jabs that landed with resounding thumps, each strike punctuated by ragged breaths. Sweat slicked his back, but a smile played on his lips. Each satisfying thump against the leather fueled him, so he refused to stop, refused to surrender to the burning in his muscles or the rawness of his knuckles. He remained focused on punching. He glanced across the gym at the rest of the boxing team. They sprawled on benches, catching their breath. Even their coach looked like he needed a recharge. Ethan, however, felt energized. He reveled in the burn in his muscles, the raw ache in his knuckles. Boxing was one of his passions, the other being engineering. More, Ethan thought, his muscles burning as he threw another combination of jabs and cross-punches. More. His love for the sport had blossomed years ago, fueled by late-night sessions in his garage, pounding away at a worn-out bag. It started as a way to unwind after long days spent hunched over engineering textbooks, a way to test his physical limits, and a way to let his father live a dream through him. But now, his father lay dying in a hospital bed, and Ethan was exhausted, Mentally, emotionally, and physically, his muscles burned and his knuckles were raw. But he couldn't stop.
All right, we're back. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that so much. So yeah, we have some comments. You should find out if you didn't know. Okay, I was confused when you were asking about them. I clearly missed some words, maybe. Yep, everyone having a good laugh. Mike Spence. Hi, friends. Hi, Joe. First-person games like that stress me out. Yeah, it depends on the game. That one in particular, the graphics were a little wonky, but that's not. I mean, those graphics are making it into a lot of games now, so I think that the gameplay looks kind of interesting. Vanessa saying hi to Joe. Pirates, yep. It's Talk Like a Pirate Day. It's always Talk Like a Pirate Day on Zero Means You're Dead. Okay. So, something that didn't even realize was happening. I haven't played this game in a long time. But for those who don't know, Hackmaster 25th Anniversary Edition is coming out from Kenzer & Co. Let's see, it is going to be on Kickstarter, and I think it's July, as I want to say. Hopefully, we can get a interview with the Kenzer Co. for this sometime in the future. Yeah. Hackmaster 25th Anniversary Edition by Kenzer & Company. This is it. The granddaddy of them all, the greatest modern RPG of the entire multiverse, the one that launched the entire old school movement. That might be true, actually. Hackmaster. So grab your dice bag, your buddies, your your imagination, and especially your attitude, because here comes the original, classic, biggest, baddest beast on the block, Hackmaster. First released in 2001, Hackmaster won Game of the Year and single-handedly created the old school RPG revival movement. However, Kenzer Co. wasn't through. We painstakingly honed the mechanism and strategy of Hackmaster to continually improve and streamline gameplay and make it something truly unique in the RPG world. A perfect blend of old school feel with modern mechanics, offering fast tactical play combined with the most immersive roleplay experience. Now, 25 years later, Kenzer Co. is taking Hackmaster to the next level. This anniversary edition holds even more options and rules tweaks that allow for more flexibility and adventure without sacrificing the grit and satisfaction of hacking your way from peasant to conqueror. Hackmaster is a game of trials and challenges where every inch of success is hard fought, with death always lurking around the corner. But this game is also about the hero's journey, going from ordinary to exceptional, just like all the classics from adventure and media. Author Baggins, Matt, I'm sure what Matt's are talking about. Ender, Potter, Dante's, David, Rocky, Luke, Wesley, Neo, Eddie. In Hackmaster, you don't begin epic. The game becomes epic with you as it unfolds. Hackmaster 25th provides an experience that satisfies the core of your soul, knowing that your striving and struggling truly pays off. In a glory that was fully earned. As the work and playtesting continue through the early part of 2026, we will continue getting ready for a massive Kickstarter launch in late July 2026. Don't miss it. For those not familiar, Kenzer Co. launched Hackmaster around the time of D&D 3rd edition when the original OGL was out. And a lot of it comes from the universe that Jolly Blackburn created with Knights of the Dinner Table, which if you haven't read that, and I think for everyone who is even just a little bit geek adjacent, it's a fun read. But it's not just game stuff. It's these characters that Jolly's created are really interesting. So, highly recommend. Okay. Anyway, I was excited about it, as you can tell. July 2026 on Kickstarter. Runeway from Mana Project Studio, also going to be on Kickstarter. a TTT about journeys, identity, and chosen family with transgender David visibility yesterday. I think this is an appropriate game to talk about. The runes are used to determine sex. God. The runes are used to determine success with consequence or failure. So it's that is been pretty. There's been a lot of games in design with that. Powered by the Apocalypse uses that, obviously, or it did. And so a lot of games are using that success with consequences, or failure. Bob Magoo's Cryptid Capture Core uses a system like that. So yeah, that sounds fun. I think that would definitely appeal to gamers looking for something that's not your typical dungeon crawling. Looks very found family, very modern, or at least maybe a little postmodern. So Coven and Crucible, 13th Moon Games, backer kit. Compton and Crucible is a game of modern-day magic and witchcraft. Imagine that. Imagine that the last Witch Hunter movie and the John Wick series got together to make a really pretty baby. It would be this game. Follow us to get access to our free quick start guide, which includes information on building a character, includes a scenario you can run. Step into a world where witches smuggle magical creatures, shifters and vampires walk the streets right alongside accountants and plumbers, oh god, and diviners look to the future to decide what stocks to buy. In Coven and Crucible, magic is a skill like any other. Use it to make your mark on the world. Coven and Crucible Reforged is a revised edition of the core rulebook for Coven and Crucible. The game has grown and evolved over the years since the core rulebook was published, and now 13th Moon Games is looking to create a new version. So this is going to be a reforged edition of Coven and Crucible. Sounds fun. From 13th Moon Games, going to be on backer kit. Flail by Games Omnivorous, going to be on backer kit. Flail is a fast, scrappy OSR, old school Renaissance or old school Revolution or just OSR, depends on how you feel about it. Brawler, where spells act up, weapons fall apart, and characters survive mostly through nerve, luck, or whatever they grabbed on the way in. Hit points are low, that's pretty typical in OSR, danger stays high, and plans rarely make it past the second roll. It's a classic fantasy chaos with a slightly unhinged grain. Created by Andre Nolos, Flail is developed and published by Games Omnivorous. Uses a tactile item and gear system that makes inventory management actually interesting, but they all say that. There's shade, but that's pretty typical. And a push your luck combat system that feels like a game of dice poker. Quick to learn, quicker to implode, ideal for hex crawls, dungeons, and players who enjoy seeing what goes wrong fast. Then that is Flail by Games Omnivorous. Ballad Hunters from Belgrade Press. That's going to be on Kickstarter. A Gumshoe TTRPG. Gumshoe is a system of haunted folk songs and the investigators who break the curse using ballad magic. Step into Regency Britain, where old folk ballads are no longer just stories. Yeah, when a song takes hold, people follow its verses towards betrayal, heartbreak, and death. Your task is to uncover that pattern and change the ending before the final line is sung. This is a new kind of investigative RPG from Belgrade Press. Built on the Gumshoe system, Ballad Hunters is designed for sharp 2 to 3 hour sessions, each centered on a single haunting ballad brought to life. If you like Gumshoe, I'm pretty sure you'll like that, or if you like Regency, England, you like that. Traveler 5e, from World's Largest RPGs / whatever is left of Games Designers Workshop, GTW. That's the story for another day. Got to be on backer kit. In fact, I think it is on backer kit. At the center of the campaign is a 4-book slipcase set, the core rulebook, gears and robots, worlds, vehicles, starships. Together, these books provide the tools needed to run adventures across the stars, including character creation, starships, planetary exploration, and systems for building entire sectors of space. For those who may not know, the sector, which is a grouping of hex columns and rows, is very important to travel in Traveler. A Traveler with 2 L's, by the way. The campaign also includes Traveler-themed extras, such as dice, patches, and other tabletop accessories. So you have dustables. Traveler has inspired science fiction campaigns since 1977. The product offers another way to explore the universe. So Traveler was arguably the first science fiction RPG. I would argue that it was. And leans in the direction of hard science fiction. It's had a solid core of people who really enjoyed it over the years, notably Mike P. from Arctalsorium, who designed the original Cyberpunk based on the 3 little booklets from the original Traveler. It has a reputation where a person can, and this is true, it's possible, die in character creation. Not as often as you might think, but it's still possible. And apparently it's still possible in the 5e version as well. So they're mapping Traveler to 5th edition. This happened in previous editions. There was a big book, and I don't have it anymore. I regret that, called Traveler 20, back in the D20 days, their 3rd edition system. That was fantastic. I loved it. But it's a different game when it goes into that D&D-ish system mode, right? It's a little bit different. All right, so we are just about to our main event. Yes, the first person came in the vids. I know what you meant. Yep. The witch game does sound fun. I agree. We should maybe do that with the Writing Troop. Writing Troop game night with Covenant Crucible. Yes, so I want to have Magic Sunlight Progress. No problem. No. All right. So a few weeks ago, I was blessed to sit down with Go Indie Now himself, Joe Compton, and well, part of the Go Indie Network, Bryan Tan, who played this thing called EFed, which when Joe first mentioned it to me, I was like, what are you talking about? Well, here we go. If you've never heard of EFed, you're in for a really big, enjoyable 20, 30 minutes. If you are a fan of EFed, which I am a little bit now, I think you're going to absolutely enjoy this. But just stick around to the end, because I've got a little bit of extra coming today. All right. Welcome to our Zero Means You're Dead interview for April 2026. I am happy to be here with Joe Compton and Bryan Tan to go in these now stalwarts, and also fans of EFed. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being on the show today. And first off, let's establish what EFed is. What is the EFed?
So e-fedding, from when I was doing it, is a it's web-based, usually with a message board, where individuals take on the role of a character in a wrestling organization, and they write out their posts as they're preparing for matchups. They could be different scenarios set up, but essentially it's almost like doing like an old school style promo. And some EFEDs have a post limit, others don't. but the whoever runs the Fed determines the winner based on who posts best.
And some have weekly shows like the WWE does, and then it's also pay-per-view based. So the big show becomes part of the pay-per-view, and then people take what those promos are. They have what's called a booker, which is in wrestling terms the person who decides the outcome of the matches.
Yep.
And basically that booker then takes those promos, and a good booker will incorporate some of the things that have been written in those promos, but that's a whole other conversation. But
yeah,
what happens is they write out matches, and they write them out, and nobody who's in the Fed other than the booker knows the result. And then we all read the pay-per-view, or what they call the pay-per-view, or the weekly show. And the weekly show usually is, they'll add promos in there. They'll let you write a promo for the weekly show, and then you do vignettes and things like that. There's not really that many matches. There's usually a squash match or something like that. But the pay-per-view is where you get the big matches. You get aligned with the people who have belts and all that stuff. It's just like watching a regular wrestling show, watching a regular, what they now call PLE, which Brian and I have
hate
discussed
that
on, and I
refuse to use that term.
But that is, the premium live event is the anagram for that. But it is basically that, and they write it out, and then you base your next run of character on what happens during that, and keep on going. And it's just it's an ongoing thing. I've been in EFEDs where we run deep, long-term storylines where it's a year-long base or however long, and you also can do character work where you reveal things about your character and things of that nature, or you can just be talking shit about somebody.
Yep,
and that's basically how that works.
Pretty much. And you've got different, depending on the characters. You've got your title picture set up. You've got obviously your world champion, as you would in, shall we say, at this point, traditional professional wrestling. Traditional versus I think is probably be the easiest way to make the differentiation.
Okay.
And so you'll have your world champion, you'll have your secondary champion, tag champion. If you've got female characters, obviously you'll have a women's division. And
which I never competed in one that had a women's division.
Neither did I. Well, when I competed, I think it was in like the earlier days, in the late 90s into the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So obviously it's probably a lot different. You would fill out a application with your real name or whatever you use, your wrestler name, bio, your basic move, like your character's basic stats, basic move set, signature move, finishing move. So in the more detailed, you would also write out your own entrance, as well as select your entrance music. So that way your writers could just copy paste into the results. And the more detailed you were, the more detailed they would be. Or if they were, you could tell Feds had good writers versus bad writers. You could just tell.
Yeah.
So I'll move back up just a little bit. When was the first time each of you sort of fell in love with professional wrestling?
Oh, brother. Longer than probably some people have been alive.
Yeah. I would agree.
I've been a fan of professional wrestling since the very first WrestleMania. So that's 1984, 1985. And I remember just as a little kid, I'd be like, Dad, can we watch WrestleMania? And he'd just pop the VHS tape in, and I'd just sit there and watch it with him. That was when I first discovered, and what hooked me on it especially, I was an A-Team kid. I was a Mr. T kid. Like Mr. T, it was God, my dad, Mr. T, in that order. So then when I saw that he was friends with this big guy with blonde hair and a mustache, I'm like, well, he must be a good guy then, because Mr. T only hangs out with good guys. Actually, I remember being mad because Hannibal, Face, and Murdoch weren't there.
So mine is more ritualistic. My father was kind of he had his Saturday rituals, which was we would watch Elvira, we would watch Kung Fu Theater, and then on Saturday nights on ESPN there was a college baseball game. That was a game of the week where back then Barry Bonds was still in college. That's how far back I go. And then right after that was the AWA hour on ESPN. And so we would watch religiously every Saturday night that thing when I was growing up from 7 years old on. And then WWE came into my radar thanks to Rocky 3 and watching Thunder Lips perform on there and going, who is that guy? And my dad saying, he's the champ of the WWF. And I go, what's the WWF? And then I got into Hulk Hogan, got me, I got to give it to Hulk Hogan. And as much as that guy's a piece of shit, he got me into wrestling and with the WWF anyway. Then I remember latching on to Randy Savage and never letting go.
So let's go back into EFed. When did that get started?
Oh, that's hard to. I mean, here's the thing.
I know exactly when it started for me. The NWO came into power, and then I was doing a wrestling zine at the time. I was creating a wrestling zine, and a guy who just randomly bought my zine online. You could still buy stuff online, but I would ship it to them. It wasn't couldn't. It was no e-zine. It was an actual. I created the actual zine and would ship it out to people. And guy got one of those copies, and he goes, "You know what I'm doing? I'm doing this thing, and I think you would be great because we did a segment in the e-zine called Fantasy Booking, where I had a guest person book with me a show in the zine." And so he goes, well, I'm doing this thing, it's called EFedding. So literally the NWO, and it was all based on the NWO's resurgence. He did his whole fed around the NWO, and he said, would you want to join in this? And that's the rest was history for me. And I spent the next 9 years doing EFedding.
Yeah.
So.
I don't quite remember how I got into it. I think someone brought it up to me in school one day, I want to say. And because I know that I was talking about getting into wrestling and someone brought it up because I was real serious about it. I was like trying to do a lot of training and stuff. But I just happened to go online and I saw, what was the name of that fed? I think it was called, I was in this one fed called EWF, and then there was an EIWF and then a KFW. I was in the EWF first, and EIWF was like an offshoot of it. I was so green at it, I didn't know you could be in more than one.
Oh, that was my next question, by the way.
Yeah. So, because I seriously thought it was like real wrestling, like you had contracts.
I got recruited from the one I was doing, which was called, I think it was called ENWO, real original. And then I got recruited. Some British guy saw me online, and I got into like British wrestling. This EFed.
I did.
He recruited my character. He even wanted my character to join, and so we did this whole storyline of how I invaded his federation. We did a thing at the end of the pay-per-view that he was writing where I came in and I hit they did this they had this tournament where they had like a trophy at the end of it, and the guy who won it was the world champ, and I took the trophy and hit him over the head with the trophy and showed up in the EFed, and it was like one of those things when CM Punk shows up out of nowhere, right, kind of thing, and then we played it like that, and so he wrote it in there like that. So I got I was public enemy number one with all.
What was the name of that fed? What was the name of that fed? Do you remember?
USWA or something like that. Something to that fed. It was. Actually, it was BWF, and then they joined and merged with USWA. Dude, I've been through the gamut with these things, and
I've been in a lot of them too. That almost sounds like I ended up getting into a British-based one, and it was kind of like I was like the tough American because my character I was never good at making.
My character was like Adrian Adonis character. I based it off of like Adrian Adonis meets Macho Man.
Wow.
My music was Celebrity Skin, the hole that I walked out to, because it's all about being pretty and,
Yeah. I used my name, and I know that for the longest time, I based my character on Brian Pillman. So I was the loose cannon Bryan Tan. And then, but I did a lot of the same things where I just said stuff. I was written as, I was about 18 at the time. So this was like 97. I had myself written in early on in my early feds as like this 18-year-old rookie that was just crazy. I was like Taz meets Brian Pillman with a little.
I totally see that.
With a little bit of RVD, because I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff back then too, martial arts wise. I'll tell you, it was wild, because it's like thinking about all this stuff now and all the things. I went from writing caps locked paragraphs to actual, like, this was what really got me really writing. Becoming a writer, setting a scene, telling a story. And I mean, I wasn't great in the early on, because it was like I had the words, but I didn't know how to get structure. So when people ask me how I became a writer, really EFedding is what made me a writer.
Same. What made me stand out and made me unique, and what made me Public Enemy #1 is I did my vignettes because my character was all about spotlight and being in Hollywood and everything. He was better than all of you, and you know it. I was MJF before MJF existed, basically, and I wrote it as him producing his own movies, like his own vignettes. So I wrote it in like screenplay format, so that like I wrote exterior night, and everybody goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I'm creating a scene. We're filming something while you guys are just talking shit about me." So that's how I created that. So
my format was very simplistic. Set the scene. If I was being interviewed, introduce the interviewer, introduce me, do a lot of trash talk, punch, like final line, go home line, done. And I mean, I definitely tried to add to it and adjust to it. I started learning HTML, because just writing it on a message board was not getting you anywhere. You would get jobbed.
HTML is huge.
You had to have your own page with your own promos, with your own role plays.
If you could highlight and make your sentence different colors, people were in awe of you.
Yeah. Like, so I remember I would always use Comic Sans MS. White would be for describing the scenes.
Yeah.
My background.
I'm going back there as Brian's talking right now.
Right? Like, my background would usually be black. Now, some people are so good that they had like a separate web page with a graphics background with like a black background embedded in, and then red would be my character, and then if there was someone else, they would have different characters. And I literally taught myself HTML using Angel Fire and GeoCities for those of us that remember those. And I learned how to embed a hyperlink into a page, because I got tired of getting jobbed. Because I mean, I had a prez tell me, "Bro, if you want to stand out, that's what you got to do."
Angel Fire was where I first started. That was the first fed I was in, and then the British guys were on Pro Boards 1, 2, 3. I don't know if anybody out there will geek out about that, but
I remember that.
I will, but I don't know if anybody else will.
Those boards looked super, super clean, and they were fantastic. I loved you could create boxes and things in there. It was such a step up for me. I was thinking I was in the WWE at that point. I was in New York, because that looked so beautiful, and it was like I wanted to preserve all of that.
They also had your in-character roleplay board, your out-of-character board.
Well, Pro Boards did that. Pro Boards you could do.
Maybe it was Pro Boards.
You could do different they had different sections. Like they had the weekly show where you posted in the weekly show, and then preparing for the pay-per-view, you had the one section you do the pay-per-view, and then out of character board, which is so very similar to role-playing games for most people. There was a private chat basically with the out of character board where you were yourself asking technical questions or talking, or there was also, it got to the point where we were starting to talk shit about NWO, and that was part of the out of character. And the out of character board was the least monitored of them all. All the other ones were privatized, so you'd have to have a password and a link to get into them. But the out of character board, so that became the spam board for the most part.
So, were any professionals actually involved in any of the EFed?
I believe there is. I believe
there had
some
to
of these guys. I believe some
have
of these guys who probably were in the independents at some point were testing their character, playing around.
It had to have been. It had to have been mostly indies. But I think that a lot of like the big, like some of the guys who are maybe low on the card would, I swear to this day, they would troll those and like take bits and pieces of characters. We
all believed that the WWE New York was stealing from us. We all believed that at one point.
Yeah.
If you didn't believe that, then because you would write something like there would be a promo on the board, and then 3 months later, or a week, even
a similar promo was up.
That promo got played by somebody on the board. So
someone
somebody was monitoring those and taking stories from us. And maybe somebody got a writing job out of that. Good for them. Maybe they were writing in EFEDs and they got a writing job with the New York or one of
God
the
bless them, man, because it's nice to know that somebody.
But I think all of us that was our aspiration, was to put ourselves out there. It was kind of our resume writing in a lot of respects. I mean, we all have delusions of grandeur. We were young.
Absolutely, we were all young. We were young wrestlers.
I was in my early 20s when that was going on, and like I said, I was running a zine at the time too, so I had delusions of being involved with wrestling from the beginning.
So people are still doing EFED. Is that correct?
I think so. I think they still exist.
So. I've been out of it for so long.
Yeah, I haven't done it in almost 15, 20 years. So.
Same. Life gets in the way, because the thing is that you gotta have time to do that. Like.
And believe me, it peters out. People just don't, if they're not getting. It's like anything else. If you're not getting love for your character or anything like that, they just lose interest and they peter out, and it becomes the same, and then people get life gets in the way, like Brian said, and the writers don't write as much anymore, and it's like, and then
feds come and go. I still remember there was the one EFed, and I went to go and post, and it was just gone. Another point, it was just like a white board that just said closed. And
ironically, like I wasn't the only one who did this, but a lot of us went back to the old message boards just to see if anybody was still posting. Yeah.
And I still remember there was one, and I'll never forget. This is the one where I think I had a lot of success with. It was called the Outsider Wrestling Federation. I loved OWF. And it was like raw and rugged. And I remember this guy who he ran the Kingdom Fantasy Wrestling. His moniker was Diamond Kid. And he started running OWF. And I had a lot of success on that. I still remember there was another kid. He had his character Vinny Vegas. But he wasn't like Kevin Nash's Vinny Vegas though. But he and I teamed up, and we were known as the Bad Motherfuckers, BMF. And when we became like a faction, a stable, I was the enforcer. I took on the crazy Arn Anderson role, backing him up. So Vinny Vegas would always become like, he would be the world champion. I would carry the secondary title, or we would end up being tag champions.
Okay, I'm gonna trip Brian out right now.
Okay.
Because we did cross paths, brother.
We did.
We did. Okay, were you Creed or Mercenary?
No,
that was the BMF, the guys that I ran into, and Vinny Vegas was a part of. They brought Vinny Vegas. He was actually a character that was an offshoot of one of the characters in BMF. He created an alter ego for that. And I probably booked you in some matches, brother.
You might have. I know that I was just Loose Cannon Bryan Tan. I didn't. Bryce Creed wasn't a thing yet. I don't think I only ever performed under Bryan Tan and then just nicknames. Now I had different nicknames like the Personification of Pain, the Loose Cannon, Badass, the Enforcer. That's where that term came from.
The Enforcer was part of BMF, so yes, we crossed paths. So how fucking crazy is that?
That is wild. And I
booked you in matches for sure.
You did?
I think I even gave you guys the tag titles at one point.
Wow. That is wild.
Mm-hmm.
That is wild. And I tell you what, man, we took that crap so seriously. Like,
you're telling me politicking is real.
Politicking was huge. And people would flip out on the out of character boards when they lost. I got into this one EFed, right? And I ended up holding, I was a workhorse at this point in time. I felt like I was getting everything together. And I ended up, like, I got recruited into this one EFed this guy was starting. And I held all of their singles titles. The world title, the cruiserweight title, because I was billed at as 220, and the secondary. And this dude went and recruited people to beat me. Like, he recruited people to beat me, and when I found out I was like, so I had no chance of winning any which way, shape, or form, did I? And he was like, no. And I was like, all right.
Just to trip people out about this, right, Sean? There was probably 300, 400 different federations you could have been involved in. For me and Bryan Tan to cross paths, that is like winning the lottery. You know, in that idea. So this is crazy right now.
It is wild because EFEDs, there were certain EFEDs that were like brother and sister feds of one another.
Yeah.
But you still ended up going up against the same people. Some people had different characters, and the one guy who I think he was one of the first world champions of OWF, he ran ASW with his wife. His character was Kremlin, and Kremlin hated me. I could not get over in ASW, no matter how hard I tried. I remember Kremlin's wife tried to help me out with getting over. She actually, I got to give her credit. She really, really helped me with the writing part of it.
Nice.
But I still couldn't get over. So I have a buddy that I was trying to get on here, and his character, I remember him and his character was Chris Green. And his tag partner was Cameron Frost, and they were called Cold Grass. And I hated them because I could never get over. BMF, Vinny Vegas, Cold Grass and BMF were the Horsemen versus the Von. It was like Horseman Von Erichs. It was nuts. It was on site every time. And
I don't remember ASW, but I did get recruited into a fed where I took the U.S. title off of Cameron Grass.
Really?
Yes. I was...
Cameron Frost pissed me.
Cameron Frost, yes. I took the U.S. title off of him. He had the U.S. title, and I took it off of him.
Good. Because he used to piss me off because he was so... good, and Chris Green was really good too.
I don't remember Chris Green, but I do remember because you remember the titles you won, and I remember who I beat.
I remember my belts, I remember I got voted into quite a few halls of fame, and
nice.
I ran OWF for a little while because Diamond Kid was stepping away, and I ran OWF, and then and I did my best, but I wasn't set out to be a prez. I wasn't. And then he came back, took it back, and then who was this guy? I remember, and and it's funny you remember. I haven't thought this name in years, but this character Matt Banks, I hated him. He was such a freaking ass and a bigot. I hated him, and they put him over me, and I just knew in my heart of hearts that I had beaten him. They put him over me, and I think that was the last time I EFEDed after that. So losing to Matt Danks, he finally got me out of EFEDing. Like he got what he wanted.
I moved to Hollywood and did like real work, so I just stopped doing it, to be honest.
Yeah, like anything, it's a part of your life, but that doesn't necessarily last forever, right?
No.
Real quick, before we go, what was your favorite for your characters? What was your favorite finishing move?
Oh man. I had two. I had the Tan mission, which was essentially the Kata Hajime. But then I also had what I called the Aftermath, which was the implant DDT. And I still use that.
I've taken the Aftermath.
Yeah, nice. I still use that in anytime I pick up, one of the 2K wrestling games. My character will do some variation of the Aftermath in that. Yes. And I will still, but of course you can't do the Kata Hajime in those games anymore.
So mine was a torture rack that was inverted into a fall away slam. So I would pick the guy up, do a torture rack, which is put the guy over your head and bend them in half, then I pulled them down into my arms like a fireman's carry and tossed them over my head. That was my finish.
Nice.
Very nice. Awesome. Thank you both for being here today on Zero Means Dead. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. We may, in fact, I think we will probably do a part 2 at some point.
Sure.
And get a little more in depth into it. Tell everybody where they can find you on the web and what you're doing.
Go ahead, Brad.
Well, you can find us here on Go Indie Now, where we are always
every month,
where we're always saving you a seat while we're working the indies.
Nice.
You can also find me personally on Blue Sky at author Bryan Tan, and I actually have to look at these to make sure I'm saying it right. Or you can find me on Threads, Writer Guy PGH.
Awesome.
Well, Mr. Hillman, here's what I want to know. I gotta know this.
Okay.
You're sitting there. You're asking about all this greatness that I've done. You have all these questions. You want to know this. You want to know that. Blah blah blah. How'd you do this? How'd you do that? Blah 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 blah. Doesn't matter. Okay, because at the end of the day, no matter what is what, up is up, down is down, left is right, right is left, water is wet, and at the end of the day, no matter how hard you try, you cannot sum up the greatness that is me with just a simple question. No. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to challenge you right now. Do better, because the next time you come to ask me questions and they come off sort of sad sack, whatever, I'm going to right upside your head. Know better. Be prepared, boy, because I am.
Let's try that again. I want to thank Joe and Brian for being on here. I loved it. Loved this interview. It was fantastic. Yeah, I was muted. Yes, I was. We'll get to comments in a second. Got a few things to wrap up. Like and subscribe. Punch that like button like it's a fascist. Make sure that you subscribe as well. If you're listening to this on Memorex, i.e. down the line somewhere, please comment. We love hearing comments from people. We love responding to them. Let's do a little bit of bookkeeping. Let's get our comments. Let's see. think it's all right. So this is me saying this is a good time. Yep, I broke the fourth wall. And as you will see, yep, Hollywood Joe Compton, the old days of the interwebs. Yep, used to have GeoCities. Who didn't have GeoCities? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the loss and cabin pressure. What a small world. Elizabeth mentioning that. Watch Joe's face. Yeah, it was interesting watching them sort of like piece that together as they were talking about places they've been and people they've been. I have to go back and I had to step away for a few minutes. Yep, it's worth it. Worth your time. You got a bunch of wrestling nerds. They really are. But wait, yep, there's some time. Yes, I'm muted. I know, and you're muted. I think. Yep, and you're muted. Yes, I was muted. I was muted. Okay, so before we get out of here, I just have something to say to you, Bryan Tan. This is my show. I don't have to talk loud because my voice hits like a brick. I don't have to challenge anyone because no human is a challenge to me. The old gods were young punks when I first stood on Pangea. See these guns? I don't have to visit our American heritage because the battleships come see me. I don't need to prove I belong. I built the ring, and the mountain it stands on was a molehill I discovered. And I could do this all day. But these good people have places to go. So consider this your acceptance letter for the School of Hard Knocks. I'm Professor Sadist. Welcome to Peen 101. It's always time to go indie now.